Review. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Becky.
And today we're doing a special edition on a series. The series is The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. Here's the first book. We've got It's Not Summer Without You as the second book. And We'll Always Have Summer as the third.
This is classic YA angst at its best.
And it involves beaches, so it's perfect summer reads too.
Summer reads.
Basically, it's about these two families who share this cottage in the summertime on this beachy town. The one family is richer, and so they own the actual cottage, whereas the other family, whose parents have been best friends for like ever, they come and stay with the richer family. The one family has Belly and her older brother Steven. The other family has Conrad and Jeremiah. There's always been a love triangle between Belly and Jeremiah and Conrad, especially because the parents are really kind of encouraging the three of them to ultimately get married one day.
They want a marriage to result from this arrangement.
They want something to happen. So it's just kind of figuring out, who does Belly love and who is she going to end up with, and does she really want to end up with one of those boys, and then also throw in a sick parent, and you've got what's going on in here.
It is. So I first read this book, I read the whole series about 6 years ago, and I love the first two books. I think the first book, Belly's voice, I just re-listened to the audiobook, and there's something, she sounds so honest and natural and real, and that is what a 15-year-old who's going through this stuff, what she would actually say. And it seems like a childlike narrative, but in so many ways Belly is childlike.
It's very childlike. My issue though, I just couldn't even get past the name Belly. Who at 14 or 15 would willingly allow people to call her Belly?
But I feel like at the summer house, that was a whole different world. That was everything was okay. Everything was...
But she let it continue throughout and into college. In college, she is allowing people to call her Belly. Seriously? Her name's Isabella. That's a good name.
So the college is the third book, and the third book was my issue book. I was so disappointed by the third book that I actually didn't reread the third book before we talked about it. I re-skimmed it because I just was so disappointed by the ending.
Well, and I think the disappointing part of the ending is that characters are acting in a way that they really never would. It's like them being forced to do things that you know for a fact that they would never do.
It feels like the whole book is just to make fangirls happy. That the fangirls wanted Belly to end up with a certain person, so the other person, who was, up until this point, perfectly fine person for Belly to end up with, they turn him into somebody that's not nice, and that he doesn't fit his nature.
See, but the person that she ends up with in the second book, I just never could see that happening.
I don't know.
She didn't like him as much as the other choice. And so it felt like something more needed to be had, because you knew all along who she was going to end up with, and that wasn't it.
See, and I felt like it could have gone either way. I felt like depending on how the writer chose, it could have gone either way. And I felt like when you've been slapped down by somebody so many times and somebody else shows you kindness, you're like, yeah, maybe I will take that option and see how that goes.
See, but that just felt like settling, and you knew it wasn't going to end well.
But I don't think it was settling, because there was actually love there.
I mean, but not in the same way. It seemed like she loved that person more like a brother than anything else. For me, it didn't work, because it just felt like she was settling.
But I thought that there were moments in the first book where she was like, oh, well, she was kind of attracted to him too, but, oh, that's her friend. That's not the one she's in love with.
I mean, yes, there was the crush and the kind of romantic longing from afar, but it was more of a friendship brother base than anything else.
See, and I feel like if the whole series, which it kind of is about this character growing up, that you can realize as you grow up that you put people in certain boxes, and those boxes aren't where they necessarily stay. And if you would put this boy in friend box, and then you say, hey, let's look at him a different way, as a grown-up, that can happen.
Yes, it can, but I just don't think that growth was really apparent in the writing.
She
didn't seem to really grow at all.
That might be my issue. Because like I said, I felt like in the first book and the second book, it felt very natural and true to the characters. And then that third book, just I was actually dreading have to reread it. So I'm like, I'm just going to skim it.
Basically, what I think should have happened is the third book should have taken place sooner into the plot. So like maybe a year after the second book, and then she could have written an adult book about something entirely different.
Right.
And
Plus,
that would have worked better.
I have to admit, when I was reading it the first time, I kept thinking, does she have to end up with one of these boys? I mean,
Well, yeah.
there's this whole world full of options. Does she really have to end up with this one boy?
I know, and I was kind of waiting for her to end up with somebody that wasn't an option.
Right.
And no. I mean, it's standard teen romance. Like, it's got the angst, it's got the fluffiness, it's got the romantic triangle. Like, so it's standard. It's just, I don't know, it's not one of my favorites.
It's still incredibly popular.
Yeah.
And it's got to be almost 10 years old.
I mean, I think that her other series is better. I don't
like
know.
The other series better.
I don't know if it's because I've read that series first.
Well, see, and I read these because when I first started working in teen librarianship, kids were coming in and asking for it, and I'm like, well, I should probably read them.
I mean, yeah, it does read a lot like your Twilight, kind of. Not the supernatural part, but the romance story and the angst and the feelings that go along with
Where
it.
it ended just felt forced.
Yeah, it did. I mean, it ended like I thought it was going to, but to get there, it felt forced. I mean, things could have... She could have had that same ending without having characters act against themselves.
I feel like it ended where I thought it was going to, but I feel like it ended not where it necessarily had to end. I think that as a writer, she could have changed it up and made it different. It didn't need to end there. It's just
It's
where
true.
it was the predictable ending, but not the only ending.
Yeah, it didn't need to end how it ended.
That is true.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of where we're at
That's
on
where we're
this
at.
series. Are we gonna rate this one, you think?
We could.
What am I gonna rate it? Do you have a rating come to mind?
Yeah, well, so I will say that book-wise, I would give the first two books unicorns, even though I know Sarah didn't love them. But the third book, I would have given a goblin, so I'll give the whole series a fairy.
See, and I think so hard for me to get past the name. Like, super difficult for me.
I'm sorry.
Like, I hated that name. But for me, it was just kind of standard across the board. Like, I didn't really have as strong of a reaction to that last book. Like, yeah, it was totally against him, but all in all, it just kind of was on par with the rest for me. So I think I would give it... I think I'll give it 2 fairies. I'll give it 2 fairies. Because, I mean, it's standard teen novel.
It is.
All right, I think we're going to end it there. So great seeing you. See you next time.